Hi, I wanted to do a little video today for patrons. It's an early spring here in Northern California, although it's been cold the past week, like the way it's supposed to be. And I'm house sitting for some people, and there's some cool plants out, and I just thought I would do a little tour of a couple of them and see if I could find a plant that I found the other day that's really cool to see out here. So here is, trying to figure out how to turn this thing around. Okay, what I'm standing by right now miner's lettuce, which is everywhere right now. And here's a really wonderful edible green. There's like a ton of it. So miner's lettuce is something that I first encountered when I lived in New Hampshire, and I worked at this farm that had a winter CSA, and which is kind of cool for New Hampshire, and it gets pretty cold there in the winter time. And we had hoop houses and a geodesic dome greenhouse, actually, and the geodesic dome greenhouse didn't get below 27 degrees in the winter. Just by the way it was designed, it had a big tank of water inside of it so that the sun would reflect into the tank, and the water would hold heat, and they had other systems in there too. And so miner's lettuce is something we had planted as a food crop we would plant it in the fall, and it would germinate and like kind of rest a bit through the winter as a small plant, and it wouldn't die just because of the way we were able to control temperatures. And so we would put like row cover over the beds too, and then like early February, like it does in California, and really in California miner's lettuce starts coming up before that. January, depends on the year and how much rain it is, because here, yeah, green season starts in fall really, but in New Hampshire we would get miner's lettuce like first thing in February when there's still a ton of snow on the ground, and we would put it in our CSA shares along with storage crops we had saved from the year before, like winter squash and onions and garlic and stuff like that. So we were able to mix storage crops with fresh greens because it's just a really hardy green for cold weather. And I mean, California is pretty mild generally, but it still can be cold in a lot of places. And yeah, it's just a really resilient, cold, tolerant green. And it's really succulent and tasty and like light and juicy. There's a couple different varieties in California. I mean, I don't know if they're subspecies or different. I think they might be just subspecies, but that have different, like some are smaller, have different colored flowers, have different like the leaves might be a more narrow shape versus this wide shape. Some of them are like straighter, pointier. And it's called miner's lettuce because during the gold mining days here, when yeah, there were big camps of men, I guess, mainly. I was just reading about this the other day. My friends who I'm house sitting for have a ton of books on local history. Like 60% of these gold mining camps were Chinese folks that they would pay a third the wages of the white men. And they employ native peoples in this way too. It's shitty, but this green kept the miners from getting scurvy. Because of just like, the winter here, it's really rainy usually. Hasn't been that rainy this winter, which is not good for the land, but there's like fresh green food in the winter here, and even with this winter not being that rainy, there is still quite a few wild greens, which is really cool because I'm used to the east, southeast, or the northeast too when I farm there. Just the greens don't start till March, April. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, so the miners would eat this, and and it's called Claytonia is the genus, and that's what we called it when I had we did the winter CSA in New Hampshire. We just called it Claytonia, and so when I first saw it out here, I just wanted to call it Claytonia. Yeah, it's really cool to see. It's something that we don't have out east growing wild, as a wild green, but yeah, it's easy to plant, and it can self-sow pretty easily and come back up in like a greenhouse, maybe in a garden. But so this is something that I've been eating a lot this winter. I really like it, and like watching how thick it can get. See, I can't flip this around unless I turn the camera, so I don't know what it's gonna look like, but here's like a whole bunch of it growing with chickweed. My friends mowed some of their yard, but did not mow a big chunk of it because they're really into eating their weeds too. They're actually really wonderful people that plant people. I'm feeling fortunate to have been house sitting for them recently. So what else we have here? There is dandelion out, crazy enough. Right? February, dandelion. There's a few of them. I'm not seeing very big basal leaves. Oh, here it is. Here's the basal leaf of the dandelion, the tooth of the lion, as the Dandelion French version of this goes, because it looks like the very serrated margins look like lion's teeth. And yeah, it's kind of cool to see the California in February producing dandelion. So this is something that I've seen all over the country, really, in rural areas, cities, really wild spaces. Just, yeah, it's pretty fun to be able to see dandelion. It's kind of cool, like that. Yeah, there's some plants that you just find everywhere and that you recognize. So dandelion, yeah, is really wonderful edible. I've made mead from the flowers. I've put them in salads, and the leaf, of course, is a wonderful edible, diuretic, spring cleansing herb, and the root is also wonderful, a wonderful diuretic and kind of tonic herb, and is good. Kind of bitter, but not as bitter as I've had before, so it's kind of variable. What else is here? Chickweed, which is pretty, let's see if you can see. Chickweed, I don't know how the focus is, but yeah, chickweed, which is also out east and other places I've been, across the country. Stellaria media, I believe, is the species. Yeah, it's flower. I'm not saying, I think it's past flower, a lot of it, crazy enough. It's like, its flower looks like a little star, a white star. And also edible. I love the taste of chickweed. Yeah, that one's been everywhere. And it's also something that I first encountered gardening, and it was kind of what we would weed out in the spring while the sun is glaring. and it would form dense mats over the garden beds. And the first people I farmed with were kind of like really anti-weed, even though it was a organic vegetable farm. They just were like, oh, weeds are the enemy. But often these are edible, wonderful, nutritious plants that you could put in your salads and eat, and it just seemed crazy to me. I started learning about herbal medicine at the same time that I started working on farms in New Hampshire, and I would do that on the weekends and then farm during the week, and I'd come back and tell my farm mates, it was an all-women farm crew, and they were probably like 6 years older than me, and they were just like, what are you talking about? I was like, this is this chickweed that we're throwing in the compost so we can eat. And I think eventually they started to hear me, but because I was a novice farmer, they were just like, we don't know about you and your crazy ideas about eating weeds. And at one point, stinging nettle randomly came up in the garden beds, and they thought I had purposely planted it. I don't know. And also, when you have weeds like this coming up in your garden beds, it is a sign of fertility. I feel like if you have nothing coming up, then if weeds won't grow in your garden beds, then there's an issue. But so I'm always happy to see chickweed coming up, and I'll often pull it up and just lay it back in the bed so that because it breaks down pretty fast. It's pretty succulent and light, and it is a great mat for keeping weeds at bay, right, for the most part. And so I love chickweed, and there's so many things to say about chickweed, like identifying it, and has little hairs on it, and there's things to say, more things to say. But some other things I'm seeing, we'll walk over. Actually, there is some yellow dock around here. There's all kinds of things. Oh, and cleavers I've been seeing too, but I wanted to show these manzanita flowers, which, you see that? Which, this is the plant that I showed manzanita sugar making. Beautiful. It started flowering a few weeks ago, and it's been an early spring, but this is my 5th winter in California, crazy enough. And I usually see it flowering sometime in February, whether it's the beginning or the end of February. And you can eat these flowers too. They're so good. You can make a meat out of them. You can infuse them in honey. You can make fritters with them. And they're really tasty and wonderful. And Manzanita's in the Ericaceae family, the Heath family. I probably mentioned that in the Manzanita video, the Manzanita sugar video. Really cool. And these flower structures are characteristic of the Heath family. So when I see sourwood, the tree flowering in the southeast, it has very similar flowers. Blueberry has very similar flowers. These kind of they don't really have separate petals. It's like a whole, I don't know the correct botanical term, drupule maybe. They might be, I don't know if they're imperfect or perfect because of how they are divided. They look like they could be called perfect because you can divide them up and it's equal, but I'm not totally sure how drupules would be characterized. I was just watching review videos last night on botany terminology just to try to get myself more remembering certain terms that I forget sometimes. But Manzanita is wonderful, and I'm gonna see if I can find on the way there this spot of pedicularis I found in my friend's backyard the other day. Ooh, it's really chilly out today. It's midday, but it's probably 40 degrees out and wet feeling. by the chicken coop, where there is a very strong electric fence for the bears that tried to eat the chickens, there's some cleavers growing right here, which is another plant that I see out east too. Grows here and as well, and not quite as I don't know, maybe I don't want to say it's not quite as abundant because I can't say that for sure. But yeah, it has world leaves, cleaves. It's also a really strong lymphagogue, just like ceanothus, which I've been obsessed with lately. And I was taught that I was taught that it's best to juice a bunch of cleavers and then tincture the juice and then take it that way. Or you could just stick it in your spring tonic teas. But I haven't actually ever juiced it and made that tincture. I don't think. I've been around people doing it at the farm I used to live, but last year when I was taking a lot of lymphagogues, I was making tea of it and just taking it that way. So, oh, look at that, daffodils. How cute. I'm not even sure what is showing because my camera is backwards. Burr. Okay, so I'm walking in this Manzanita patch. Oh, I'm gonna be stopping, I think, a few times. Here's soap plant or soap root. Yeah, it's a really cool native California plant. It's been sprouting up everywhere. I'm trying to remember if it's in the agave family or the yucca family right now, but it is, yeah, it was a native food in California. This is a leaf, and it contains saponins. You just have to, there's a process to getting saponins out of the roots so it can be edible. And last year, my friend Luke, Learning Deer, was out here in California, and he said he did a bunch of experiments through the winter where he processed a bunch of different soap root and ate it, and he would cook it in his wood stove like a sweet potato, and he said it was really good. And a lot of people were like, I don't know, I mean, supposedly it's edible, but I've never been able to make it taste good. And he said it was wonderful. So there's like a certain kind of process to it. And it's, when I was on a plant walk last year at the Buckeye gathering, this like Earth Skills gathering in the foothills of California, I went with a couple different people, and one of them was a native person to that area. I believe it was Concow. That was the name of the town and the native tribe. And they talked about using the root, which has little hairs, as like a brush for acorn processing. I'm not going to dig one up right now, but I did dig one up last year where there was like an eroded hill, and there was some sticking out, and I noticed, oh, that's soap plant. There was like one leaf sticking out. And so I looked at the root, and it was pretty cool. Like making a brush out of the fibers of the root kind of makes me think about OSHA and like the little hairs that stay, the woody hairs from the dyed back stalk that gets sent up. I guess OSHA is more than just a single stalk, but the woody part that remains in the soil forms over year after year these like hairs that stay intact, and so that is what formed the brush for maybe like processing acorns happened here, like in these granite, and it's different in every region, but these granite stone surfaces, and then getting the acorn meal out of the crevices of different places where in different parts of the processing, it makes sense. So it's kind of cool. There's soap plant coming up everywhere. And so let me see if I can find this pedicularis. Walking some ceanothus through here, and the Sierra coffeeberry, Rhamnaceae family right here. I had never met the coastal one until like when I first came out to California, and I went to Jug Handle Nature Preserve, this place that had all the plants labeled, and the way that the leaf structure is, it just imprinted in my mind that, it's hard to, let's see. The way that if you can see that, the veins go straight all the way to the margins. That's like a thing that I had seen in this family. There's other families, there's other plants that do this too, but I just noticed it, and then I ID'd it in John Muirlaw's book, his Sierra's plants book. I'm like, oh yeah. So it's just a different, I'm pretty sure, I mean, it's a different version than the coastal coffeeberry that is related to the Cassara sagrada that we know. Here's a gray pine cone right here. Pretty big, crazy, you don't want it to hit your head. There's a bunch of gray pines here. Silky, beautiful. Yeah. I am gonna walk to the spot where I'm pretty sure, I mean, I was just here earlier this morning. I'm just trying to remember where the path is, because there's all these deer trails. I have never seen pedicularis out here. I just haven't been really looking for it. I was like, it will show itself to me when it's time to, I mean, here's one right here in front of me. And there's a whole grove of them over here somewhere that we saw earlier. That was really thick and beautiful. I've seen it in a couple different places out west, but I hadn't found it. Yeah, here in the Sierra Foothills, and then it just sort of showed itself to me the other day. So here's one. Pretty beautiful. There's a couple little ones. It's hard for me to tell whether this is focusing properly because I'm having to turn the camera around, but my camera doesn't have a little switcheroo while you're videoing to flip it. I think it's the Densiflorus, but I haven't officially ID'd it myself. Here's some more coming up right here. And so this is like a Manzanita Grove, and they like to come up in those zones. Manzanita, these dense Manzanita forests. A couple more, almost like little morels. They're not, of course, but like that feeling of like, oh look, Manzanita. I mean, pedicularis coming up everywhere. So it's pretty fun. And I adjust my eyes and try to look through the forest, and I can see like the pink popping out from the ground. It's kind of cool. And then realizing it's kind of everywhere. I haven't harvested any, and I'm not sure if I will. I really love pedicularis medicine. It's a skeletal muscle relaxant. Oh, here's a cute little grove. So it's really good for repetitive movement and sore muscles, tenseness, and also like sexual trauma and not being able to fully be in your body and relaxed. It's really good for that. And I used to take it a lot when I farmed and was really achy at the end of the day from just like hoeing or hauling things, and I actually really miss that full body soreness that I used to have a lot. And pedicularis is like my best friend, and I have friends that are weavers and eye tanners too that really like pedicularis for just how hard that can be on your tendons and muscles and stuff. So here is another little beautiful grove here. I just thought it was so cool. Oh, this one's like way more in flower than the other ones. I'm like, I can't tell how focused this is, but really cool. And so a bunch of them here, you can kind of start to see them popping through. So yeah, Burr. I think I'm gonna conclude the little showing at that. I could keep going on, and this is already like a 25-minute video, so it's gonna take forever on YouTube to load, unless anyone knows a better way. But that's some stuff I've been looking at the past few days, and seeing Manzanita flowers everywhere. Oh, one more thing. Some ceanothus. This is, I believe, buckbrush. I don't know how to pronounce the species. Cuientus, I think. It's been in flower a little bit. Yeah, I wish I had my loop on me to look at these little bitty flowers. They're super cute. But yeah, it's everywhere. This is mostly that. There's some other things mixed in, but I just thought I would point that out real quick because I just did that plant profile on ceanothus, and I'm still learning so much about that group of plants every day. So, alright, I'm officially ending, and there's a dog I don't recognize right in front of me. Neighbor's dog. Okay, thanks so much for watching and supporting me here. So, until next time.